Ancient engineers created technologies that defy our modern expectations. This video reveals forgotten innovations that surpassed their time and will permanently change how you view human history. You will discover how civilizations without computers or electricity built machines that predicted the stars and forged metals that never rust. How did a 2,000-year-old device compute astronomical cycles with perfect accuracy? Why did a concrete recipe from the Roman Empire produce structures stronger than anything we build today? What does our own technological future look like when viewed through the lens of these lost marvels? A corroded lump of bronze and wood lay hidden for centuries on the ocean floor. When divers first pulled this strange object from a Roman shipwreck near the island of Antikythera, they had no idea what they were holding. It was initially dismissed as a navigational tool or a simple astrolabe, a curious artifact but nothing extraordinary. Decades later, researchers using advanced imaging technology finally saw through the calcified crust. They uncovered not a simple instrument, but an intricate machine of bewildering complexity. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, a device so advanced it would take over a century to even begin to understand its purpose. Dating to around 100 years before the Common Era, this hand-powered bronze computer could predict the motions of the cosmos with astonishing precision. It calculated the positions of the sun and moon, predicted lunar and solar eclipses, and even tracked the cycles of the ancient Olympic Games. At its heart was a system of interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth so fine and precisely cut they resemble the work of a master watchmaker. But this was not built in the 1800s. It was created over 2,000 years ago. The most shocking discovery was a component called a differential gear. This ingenious arrangement of gears allows for the calculation of differences in rotational speed, and it is the same fundamental principle used in the axles of modern automobiles. This technology was thought to have been invented in the 16th century, yet here it was, functioning perfectly in a device from classical antiquity. How did it work? The front dial featured a movable ring representing the Egyptian calendar, with a pointer for the sun and a beautiful, rotating black and silver ball to show the phase of the moon. On the back, two large spiral dials predicted eclipses and tracked the timing of major athletic festivals. Tiny inscriptions, a user manual etched in bronze, explained which celestial events were signified by the pointers. This was not just a scientific instrument. It was a philosophical statement, a physical model of a universe governed by predictable mathematical laws. Who used this magnificent device? Was it a teaching tool for a wealthy patron, a navigational aid for a ship's captain, or an astrologer's secret weapon for crafting horoscopes? The truth is, we may never know its exact purpose, and that is part of its enduring mystery. The existence of the Antikythera Mechanism forces us to ask a profound question. If this one device survived by pure chance, how many other marvels of ancient engineering were lost to time, their secrets waiting silently beneath the earth or the sea? Centuries after the Antikythera Mechanism was lost to the sea, another ancient secret was being unleashed upon the water, not to chart the stars but to command them. Imagine the terror of an enemy fleet witnessing a stream of liquid fire arching from a Byzantine warship. This was not ordinary flame. It clung to the water's surface, burning with a ferocity that seawater only seemed to feed. This was Greek fire, the Byzantine Empire's ultimate weapon, and its precise formula was a state secret so closely guarded that it vanished from history. From the 7th century onward, this terrifying substance was deployed through bronze tubes mounted on the prows of their ships, or sometimes hurled in grenades. Upon contact, it would ignite, creating an inferno that was nearly impossible to extinguish. Historical accounts suggest it was a volatile mixture, likely based on crude petroleum drawn from surface wells around the Black Sea, possibly combined with quicklime, which generates intense heat when it reacts with water, and other secret, resinous ingredients that made it sticky and persistent. The psychological impact was as devastating as the physical damage. Enemy sailors who relied on water to douse any blaze watched in horror as their efforts only seemed to spread the hellish substance. It was the key to Byzantine naval dominance for over 500 years, a technological edge that repeatedly saved their capital, Constantinople, from being overrun. During the Arab sieges of the city, it was Greek fire that turned the tide, incinerating entire fleets and securing the empire's survival. The secret was so valuable that only a single family, we are told, knew the full recipe, passing it down from generation to generation. This deliberate secrecy is precisely why the exact composition is lost to us today, a permanent gap in our historical knowledge. The legacy of Greek fire, however, echoes through the centuries, influencing the development of later incendiary weapons like napalm. Its existence makes you wonder what other military marvels, what other chemical or mechanical secrets did ancient civilizations develop and then take with them to the grave, leaving only legends and a lingering sense of awe in their wake. While Greek fire mastered the sea with destructive force, another Roman innovation was designed to endure it. The Pantheon in Rome has stood for nearly 2,000 years, its vast dome still the largest unreinforced concrete structure in the world. It was built without the steel rebar that is essential to our modern skyscrapers and bridges. This longevity is no accident. It is the direct result of a forgotten recipe, a formula for Roman concrete that was deliberately engineered to last for eternity. Our own modern concrete begins to crack and crumble after just a few decades, especially when exposed to seawater. Yet all across the Mediterranean, you can find Roman harbors and breakwaters that have been submerged in the ocean for 2 millennia, and they are not just intact. They are stronger now than when they were first poured. How is this possible? The secret lies in a specific mixture of ingredients that the Romans perfected through observation and experimentation. They combined volcanic ash, known as pozzolana, with lime and chunks of volcanic rock. When this mix was combined with seawater, it triggered a remarkable chemical process. The saltwater reacted with the lime and ash to form rare, interlocking minerals that actually fill in any cracks that begin to form. Geologists studying samples have found crystals of a mineral called aluminous tobermorite growing throughout the ancient concrete. This is a self-healing material. When a tiny fracture appears, the surrounding concrete reacts with moisture to grow new minerals that seal the gap shut. Modern concrete, by contrast, is a passive material. Once it cracks, the damage only spreads, requiring constant and costly repairs. The Romans were not just builders. They were alchemists of stone, creating a living material that grew stronger with age and stress. Think of the aqueducts that still march across the European landscape, or the colossal substructures of the Colosseum. These were not feats of brute force, but of sophisticated chemical knowledge. We are only now beginning to understand the full complexity of their process, a process that could revolutionize how we build our own cities to be more resilient and sustainable. If we could unlock this ancient wisdom, we could create seawalls that fortify themselves against rising oceans and buildings that maintain themselves for centuries. This raises a humbling thought. What other profound solutions to modern problems are hidden in the quiet endurance of the ancient world, waiting not in complex machinery, but in the very stones beneath our feet? Among the quiet artifacts of the ancient world sits a simple clay jar no larger than a hand. Found in the sands near Baghdad, this unassuming pot from the Pantheon period, roughly 2,000 years old, holds a secret that has electrified historical debate. Inside, a copper cylinder houses an iron rod, isolated from the vessel's walls by an asphalt plug. To some, this is the Baghdad battery, a device that may have generated electricity over a millennium before Alessandro Volta invented his modern battery. If this interpretation is correct, it fundamentally rewrites the timeline of human discovery. When filled with an acidic electrolyte like vinegar or grape juice, a replica of this jar can produce a small but measurable voltage, around 1 to 2 volts. That is enough to create a faint tingle or, perhaps more practically, to electroplate a small object with a thin layer of gold or silver. Imagine an artisan using this subtle current to gild a sacred pendant or a royal ring, a magical transfer of metal that would have seemed like alchemy. Proponents of this theory point to the existence of fine, silver-plated objects from the same era, artifacts that could have been created through just such a process. The implications are staggering, suggesting a forgotten branch of practical science. Yet not every expert is convinced. Skeptics like materials expert Dr. Paul Craddock offer a more mundane explanation. They argue the jar could simply have been a secure storage container for precious scrolls, with the iron and copper acting as inert protective casings, their true purpose lost to time. The asphalt seal would have kept the contents dry and safe, not acting as an electrical insulator. This divide between a revolutionary power source and a simple storage pot lies at the heart of the mystery. There is no definitive writing, no ancient manual to tell us its true purpose. This single object forces us to confront the limits of our understanding. We look for grand, complex machines, but the most profound secrets may be hidden in plain sight, disguised as everyday items. What other common artifacts from the ancient world held a hidden, technological purpose that we have simply failed to recognize because we were not looking for it? High on the arid plains of southern Peru, the desert floor itself becomes a canvas for the colossal. Here, the Nazca people etched a sprawling gallery of geoglyphs, immense lines and figures so vast their true form only reveals itself from the sky. A hummingbird with wings spread wide, a sinuous monkey with a coiled tail, a perfectly straight line running for miles across the desolate landscape. These creations were not built upward but carved downward, a process of subtraction where workers meticulously removed the dark, sun-baked surface stones to expose the lighter, sand-colored soil beneath. This contrast made the designs starkly visible, yet they were intended for a viewer who, by all conventional understanding, did not exist. The Nazca culture flourished from around 500 years before the Common Era to 500 years after, yet human flight was still centuries beyond their imagination. So how did they achieve such breathtaking scale and precision without ever seeing their own work from above? The answer lies in a masterful application of simple technology and mathematical principles. They could have used a system of stakes and ropes to plot out the designs from a central point, scaling up smaller models step by step across the flat terrain. A team working on one small section would only need to ensure their part was correct, trusting the overall plan to create the grand image. The stability of the desert climate, with minimal rain and wind to disturb the stones, then preserved their work for millennia. But the greater mystery is not how they did it, but why. For decades, the German mathematician Maria Reich devoted her life to protecting and studying the lines, arguing they formed a giant astronomical calendar. She proposed that the long lines pointed toward the horizon where the sun and certain stars would rise on specific dates, crucial for marking seasonal changes for agriculture. Others see a more spiritual purpose. In a landscape where water was the ultimate source of life, the lines may have been ceremonial pathways for rituals to summon life-giving rains, with the animal figures representing spirits or constellations linked to water. The sheer scale suggests they could also have been pilgrimage routes, walked by devoted followers to connect with divine forces. The truth is, the purpose was likely a complex fusion of all these ideas, a physical manifestation of a world where the celestial, the spiritual, and the terrestrial were inextricably linked. The Nazca Lines force us to reconsider the very definition of technology. It is not always about gears and engines. Sometimes, the most advanced technology is a system of knowledge, a method for organizing human labor and perception to alter the world on a monumental scale. They transformed their entire environment into a sacred space, a testament to a vision so grand it could only be comprehended from the heavens. What other vast, earth-spanning projects from the ancient world have we missed simply because we have been looking too closely, unable to step back and see the full picture they left for us? Standing over 23 feet tall in the heart of Delhi, an iron pillar has defied a fundamental law of nature for 16 centuries. While any modern iron structure left exposed to the monsoon rains and humidity would have long since crumbled into reddish dust, this ancient column remains remarkably pristine, its surface smooth and resistant to the relentless corrosion that should have consumed it. This is the Iron Pillar of Delhi, a metallurgical marvel that has stood as a silent witness to empires, its very existence challenging our assumptions about ancient technological capabilities. Scientific analysis has uncovered the secret to its longevity. The iron used by the Gupta Empire's master blacksmiths was not the pure, processed metal we use today. Instead, it was forged from a unique type of iron ore rich in phosphorus. The ancient smelting process, using large clay furnaces and charcoal, did not remove this phosphorus, resulting in a metal with an unusually high phosphorus content and very little sulfur or manganese. This specific chemical composition, once thought to be an impurity, is the key to the pillar's resilience. Over time, the phosphorus reacts with the iron and the oxygen in the air, not to form flaky, destructive rust, but to create a thin, invisible, and incredibly stable protective layer called mesawite. This passive film acts as a shield, preventing further oxygen from reaching the underlying metal and stopping the corrosion process in its tracks. It is a self-protecting material, growing stronger and more resilient with age, much like the Roman concrete we explored earlier. The craftsmanship involved was equally sophisticated. The pillar was not cast, but was likely forged by hammer welding large lumps of hot iron together, a monumental task requiring immense skill and coordination. An inscription on the pillar itself, written in Sanskrit, suggests it was originally erected to honor a powerful Gupta king, possibly as a standard bearing an image of the divine bird Garuda. It was a symbol of imperial power, but also a public declaration of technological and artistic mastery, a testament to a culture that had achieved a profound understanding of materials science. This knowledge, however, appears to have been a pinnacle that was not sustained. The specific techniques and ore sources that made the pillar possible were somehow lost or fell out of use in later centuries. We are left with a single, stunning artifact, a data point so advanced it stands alone. It forces us to ask, what other metals did ancient societies learn to manipulate with a similar, almost alchemical expertise? The answer lies not in a single pillar, but in the glittering treasures pulled from the tombs of kings. That same mastery of materials and optics found another breathtaking expression not in a pillar, but in a tower of light. The Pharos of Alexandria did not just guide ships, it announced the power of a new kingdom. built on the island of Pharos, connected to the city by a massive man-made causeway. This structure soared to a height that would rival a 40-story building today. For over 16 centuries, it stood as one of the tallest man-made structures on Earth, a gleaming white marble beacon that was one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Its design was a marvel of logistical planning. How do you keep a massive fire burning at the summit night after night? The solution was as ingenious as it was simple, a broad, spiraling ramp that coiled up through the tower's core. This allowed teams of donkeys or oxen to haul carts of wood or other fuel all the way to the top, a continuous supply chain reaching for the sky. But the true genius of the Pharos lay in its light. Ancient sources describe a massive, polished bronze mirror, or perhaps a complex array of them, designed to reflect and project the fire's glow far out to sea. Some accounts suggest this system was so advanced it could focus the sunlight during the day to set enemy ships ablaze, a claim that, while likely exaggerated, speaks to the awe it inspired. This was not a simple bonfire on a hill. It was an optical instrument, a carefully engineered system to bend and direct light across vast distances, ensuring that trading vessels and warships alike could find safe passage to the richest port in the ancient world. The entire structure was a fusion of Greek architectural ambition and Egyptian engineering prowess, built on a foundation that had to withstand the constant pulse of the Mediterranean. Its legacy is written in the very word for lighthouse in so many languages, from French to Spanish, all derived from the name of that island. When it was finally toppled by a series of powerful earthquakes, the world lost not just a building, but a symbol of what human collaboration and intellect could achieve. It makes you wonder how many other guiding lights, other monumental works of practical genius, have been lost to the same restless earth, their secrets buried under centuries of silt and stone. Hidden away in a vault at Yale University is a book that should not exist. It is the Voynich Manuscript, a 240-page puzzle bound in vellum, filled from edge to edge with a script that no one on Earth can read. Its pages bloom with illustrations of plants that defy botanical classification, their roots and leaves twisting into impossible shapes. Naked women bathe in strange green pools connected by intricate plumbing, and circular charts map out celestial bodies in patterns that do not match any known sky. This book, carbon dated to the early 15th century, is written in a language comprised of elegant, looping characters that form words and sentences with a statistical structure similar to real human language, yet it remains completely indecipherable. The man who gave the manuscript its name, Wilfrid Voynich, was a Polish book dealer who discovered it in a chest at an Italian Jesuit college in 1912. He believed it was the work of the 13th century friar Roger Bacon, containing scientific secrets too advanced for its time. That initial hope sparked a century-long quest to crack its code, drawing in some of the world's top cryptographers, including teams from the First and Second World Wars who used their advanced code-breaking skills on its text. They found nothing. The patterns are consistent enough to suggest meaning, but they resist every tool of modern linguistics and computation. Is it a sophisticated cipher, a lost language from a forgotten culture, or something else entirely? One of the more recent theories comes from Dr. Gerard Cheshire, who proposed it was written in a Proto-Romance language, a common vernacular that was never formally standardized, and that its alphabet is a unique combination of familiar and invented symbols. Yet this theory, like all the others, has failed to gain widespread acceptance. The very features that suggest a real language also make it a perfect candidate for an elaborate, centuries-old hoax. Could a clever forger in the 15th century have created a nonsense text with just enough internal consistency to fool experts for generations? perhaps to sell a worthless book to a wealthy, guileless patron. The illustrations offer no clear answer. Those unidentifiable plants could be coded representations of real herbal knowledge, or they could be pure fantasy, designed to look convincingly strange. The bathing women might depict a lost alchemical process, or they might be a deliberate distraction. The manuscript's resistance to interpretation is what gives it power. It sits at the boundary between knowledge and obscurity, a stark reminder that not every artifact from the past is willing to surrender its secrets. It challenges our arrogance, our belief that with enough data and processing power we can understand anything. What if some doors are meant to remain closed, not because the lock is too complex, but because there is nothing of substance behind them? Or what if the greatest secret of the Voynich manuscript is the simple, unsettling fact that a complete understanding of the past is forever beyond our grasp? This relentless curiosity about encoded knowledge pushes us to look elsewhere, to other texts that guard their messages just as fiercely. High on a misty mountain ridge, the stones of Machu Picchu lock together in a silent, seismic dance. These are not mere blocks piled high. They are a three-dimensional puzzle of breathtaking complexity, each granite piece sanded and shaped to fit its neighbors so perfectly that the joints defy perception. For centuries, these walls have swayed with the violent tremors that shake the Andes, yet they never collapse. They simply settle and then settle back, a testament to the Incas' revolutionary approach to construction that required not a single drop of mortar. This was ashlar masonry perfected into an art form. The process began deep within quarries, where workers used simple tools of hardened bronze and stone to fracture enormous blocks from the bedrock. They would drill a line of holes and drive wooden wedges into them, then soak the wood with water. As the wood expanded with tremendous force, it would cleanly split the stone along a precise plane. Then came the true artistry. Using river cobbles of even harder stone, they would pound and grind the surfaces, gradually shaping each face. They likely used sand and water as a final abrasive polish, achieving that signature, seamless fit through patient, relentless effort. This was not a production line, it was a custom fitting for every single stone. Masons would repeatedly test a block's fit against its intended neighbor, carving and grinding until the contact was perfect. The result was a wall where each block is slightly convex, interlocking with the concave surfaces of those around it. This created a structure that was not rigid but flexible, allowing the entire wall to shift and dissipate the energy of an earthquake without shattering. The organizational feat behind this is staggering. Imagine the coordination required to transport multi-ton stones up steep mountain paths without the wheel or draft animals, using only log rollers, earthen ramps, and immense human effort. This was a society that understood geology, selecting the right stone for the right purpose, and geometry, visualizing complex interlocking patterns that would distribute weight and stress with perfect efficiency. For the Inca, this was more than engineering, it was a spiritual and political act. These perfectly fitted walls, seen in their temples and royal estates, symbolized the power of the Sapa Inca to bind the diverse peoples of the empire into a single, unshakable whole. The stone itself was alive, and by fitting it together without gap or mortar, they were honoring the earth and creating structures that were eternally part of the mountain. The durability of their work shames much of our own modern construction. We build with rigid materials that crack under stress, while they built with flexibility and foresight, creating legacies in stone that teach us a profound lesson in sustainable resilience. If they could achieve this with bronze and stone, what does that say about our own potential to build a world that lasts? Inside a Han Dynasty palace, a silent bronze dragon suddenly released its metal ball. The clatter as it fell into the waiting mouth of a bronze frog signaled a crisis, but the ground beneath the court was perfectly still. Days later, a messenger arrived with news of a major earthquake hundreds of miles away. This was the legendary seismoscope of Zhang Heng, a device that seemed to feel the tremors of the earth long before the people could. Created in the year 132 of the Common Era, it was a masterpiece of art and science, a bronze vessel ringed with 8 dragon heads, each corresponding to a cardinal or intercardinal direction. Below each dragon sat a corresponding frog with its mouth open, ready to catch the ball. The internal mechanism was a secret even then, lost to time, but its purpose was clear: to provide an early warning that could save countless lives. How could it possibly detect a quake from such a distance? The most widely accepted theory involves a clever inverted pendulum hidden inside the ornate vessel. When seismic waves, the primary waves that travel fastest from an earthquake's epicenter, reach the device, they would cause a delicate central pendulum to swing. This motion would trigger a lever or a set of gears that would dislodge a ball from just one of the dragon's mouths, the one pointing toward the source of the disaster. Another theory suggests a system of mercury-filled tubes that would slosh with the vibrations, channeling the liquid to activate the release mechanism in a single direction. Whatever the precise method, it demonstrated a profound grasp of physics, an understanding that the Earth's tremors moved in waves that could be measured and their origin triangulated. This was not magic, it was sophisticated mechanical engineering. For the Han Dynasty court, this was more than a scientific curiosity. It was a vital tool of governance. By knowing the general direction of a quake, the emperor could dispatch aid and assess damage to remote provinces quickly, demonstrating his benevolent reach and maintaining stability across a vast empire. It was a tangible application of state-funded research for the public good. Zhang Heng, a brilliant astronomer, cartographer, and poet, embodied this spirit of empirical inquiry. His device proved that the heavens were not the only force worth measuring. The very ground underfoot held patterns that could be decoded. The fact that Western science would not develop a similar instrument for over 15 centuries makes you wonder what other principles of physics and early warning were discovered, applied, and then forgotten by ancient cultures. What other systems did they devise to listen to the whispers of the planet, trying to anticipate its next violent move? Deep within the crypt of the Hathor Temple at Dendera, a stone relief presents a puzzle that seems to defy its own era. Etched into the wall is a large, bulbous object, and inside it, a snake stretches along its length, held upright by a pillar. Wires appear to connect this strange device to a box where a priest stands nearby. To a modern eye, the resemblance to a colossal light bulb is undeniable, a spark of advanced technology frozen in ancient stone. This is the so-called Dendera light, a Ptolemaic-era carving that has become a battleground between imaginative speculation and orthodox archaeology. Those who see a lamp propose that the snake represents a glowing filament, the pillar is its support, the box is a power source like the Baghdad battery, and the cables are wires conducting an electrical charge. They argue that such a device could explain how the Egyptians illuminated the deep, windowless interiors of their tombs and temples without covering the walls in soot from countless torches. Some experimenters have even built working models based on this design, using primitive batteries and glass vessels to produce a faint, flickering glow, proving that such a concept is physically possible. Yet, mainstream Egyptology offers a profoundly different interpretation, one rooted entirely in the language of myth. They see not a light bulb, but a moment of divine creation. The bulb is a lotus flower, a sacred symbol of rebirth, from which a serpent, representing the god Horus, is emerging. The pillar is the serpent's supportive stem, and the entire scene depicts the primordial moment the sun god was born from the lotus, bringing light into the world not through electricity, but through cosmic power. The surrounding reliefs are filled with other gods and symbolic imagery that reinforce this mythological narrative, placing the controversial image firmly within a known religious context. Furthermore, no physical evidence of glass bulbs, filaments, or electrical generators has ever been found in any Egyptian excavation. This stark divide forces us to confront a fundamental question about how we view the past. Are we projecting our own technological worldview onto a culture that expressed its genius through symbol and story? Or are we dismissing a literal truth because it does not fit our established timeline? The Dendera relief is a powerful reminder that ancient art was a language of its own, where a single image could hold multiple layers of meaning, both spiritual and practical. The challenge is to appreciate the Egyptians' profound knowledge without recasting their gods as engineers. Perhaps their true innovation was not in harnessing electricity, but in mastering the power of a symbol to illuminate the human spirit for millennia. Another unassuming artifact rests in a museum case, a delicate wooden bird carved from sycamore wood, discovered in 1898 during an excavation of a tomb at Saqqara. This simple object seemed at first to be just one more ritual offering. Yet its design gives one pause. The Saqqara bird, dating to around 200 years before the Common Era, possesses a vertical tail fin unlike any bird in nature, a feature that looks strikingly like the stabilizer on a modern aircraft. Its wings are straight and aerodynamically shaped, not crafted for flapping but for gliding. To the modern eye, it is almost impossible not to see the blueprint for a monoplane. This resemblance has sparked a fierce and fascinating debate that cuts to the very heart of how we interpret the ancient world. Proponents of the model aircraft theory point to practical tests. When skilled modelers built accurate, scaled-up replicas of the artifact, they found that with the addition of a small horizontal stabilizer it was missing, the design achieved remarkably stable gliding flight. It was not just a toy tossed by a child, it was a sophisticated aerodynamic form capable of carrying a payload. Could this have been a scale model for a larger, manned glider, a secret project for a priest or a pharaoh that was never fully realized? The idea is tantalizing, suggesting a branch of practical physics that was explored and then abandoned, its principles lost for 2 millennia. The mainstream archaeological perspective, however, grounds the object firmly in its cultural context. They argue it is far more likely a ceremonial object, perhaps a votive offering to the gods, or even a child's toy. The falcon was a sacred bird in Egypt, associated with the god Horus, and countless stylized bird figurines have been found. The unique tail in this view could simply be a stylized representation of a bird's tail feathers, or it might have once held a separate piece like a ceremonial standard. Without any hieroglyphic explanation or any other similar technological artifacts from the period, most scholars see a religious symbol, not an engineer's diagram. This is the core of the mystery. We are looking at the same object but seeing two different worlds. One is a world of proto-scientific experimentation, where keen observers of nature might have studied the flight of seeds and birds and attempted to replicate their principles in a functional model. The other is a world of profound symbolism, where an artisan carved a sacred falcon destined not for the sky, but for a tomb, meant to carry the soul of the deceased into the spiritual realm. The truth may lie in a place we often overlook, where innovation is not purely practical or purely spiritual, but a seamless blend of both. The same culture that built monumental pyramids with staggering precision might also have carved a wooden bird that could fly, seeing no contradiction between a sacred offering and a test of aerodynamic principles. The Saqqara bird challenges us to expand our definition of what ancient technology could be. It forces us to ask how many other miniature models, dismissed as mere toys or ritual objects, are in fact tiny, three-dimensional blueprints for ideas that were far ahead of their time. A map drawn in 1513 seems to show a continent humanity would not officially find for another 300 years. The Piri-Reis map, a fragment of a larger world chart crafted on gazelle skin by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri-Reis, presents a coastline at the bottom of the world that bears a startling resemblance to the landmass we call Antarctica. This is not its only mystery. The map also portrays the eastern coast of South America with a precision that was remarkably advanced for its time, all drawn decades before European explorers had fully charted these waters. How could an Ottoman admiral in Constantinople know the shape of a frozen, hidden continent? The key lies in the admiral's own notes written in the margins of his creation. He openly states that he compiled his map from a multitude of source charts, including what he called the maps of the ancients. He specifically references a map used by Christopher Columbus, suggesting he had access to charts from the earliest European voyages, but he also refers to even older sources, some dating back to the time of Alexander the Great. This admission is a bombshell. It implies that a sophisticated body of geographical knowledge existed long before the age of exploration, a knowledge that was then lost, surviving only in these copied fragments. Scholars are deeply divided on what the map truly represents. Some researchers point to the apparent outline of Antarctica's Queen Maud Land, a coastline now buried under a mile of ice, as evidence that the original source maps were drawn in a remote, ice-free antiquity, a time when that land could actually be seen. They argue this is a fossilized memory of ancient voyages, a ghost in the cartographic machine. The mainstream academic view, however, is far more skeptical. Critics argue that the strange southern landmass is likely a misinterpretation, a clumsy fusion of the speculative Terra Australis Incognita with the recently discovered coast of South America, perhaps even distorted depictions of Patagonia. They see coincidence, not a lost civilization's chart. The truth may be a complex tapestry of both. Piri-Reis was a master synthesizer, not an original explorer. He wove together Portuguese, Spanish, Arab, and ancient charts into a single, ambitious picture of the world. His genius was in compilation, but the sources he compiled from remain the true enigma. This single piece of vellum forces us to consider the possibility that ancient seafarers, using technologies and skills we can only guess at, mapped the world with an accuracy that would not be rivaled for centuries. What tools of navigation and observation did they possess that allowed them to chart such vast, open oceans? A geode split open in 1961 revealed a mystery trapped inside. 3 collectors hunting for minerals near Olancha, California, found a strange nodule that seemed to be a simple lump of hardened clay. When they cracked it open, they did not find the expected crystal cavity. Instead, they saw a circular cross-section of a hard, white material surrounding a central metal rod. The entire object was encased within the rock itself. It looked for all the world like a modern spark plug. This was the Koso artifact, and its discovery sent immediate ripples through the world of alternative history. How could a piece of 20th century technology be sealed inside a rock that supposedly took hundreds of thousands of years to form? The implications were staggering, suggesting a lost civilization or even ancient visitors with advanced knowledge. The story was a perfect storm for speculation, an object so clearly out of place it seemed to break history. The truth, however, is a masterclass in how natural processes can create astonishing illusions. Scientific analysis soon provided a more mundane explanation. The hard, white material was not a mysterious ceramic, but a common iron concretion, a type of mineral buildup that forms around a hard object. The metal core was identified as a simple nail or metal pin. The entire assembly, a 1920s-era champion spark plug, had likely been lost on the desert floor. Over the decades, mineral-rich water percolated around it, depositing layers of hardened clay and iron oxides that perfectly mimic the appearance of a geode. The extreme hardness of this concretion made it seem like it had fossilized over eons, but the process can occur in a matter of decades in the right conditions. The initial X-rays and examinations that seemed so mysterious were later understood through straightforward geology. This case highlights a crucial tension in the study of the past, the powerful human desire to find evidence that rewrites history, set against the patient, often less glamorous work of scientific verification. The Koso artifact is not evidence of a prehistoric spark plug, but it is evidence of something equally fascinating, our own capacity for wonder and our occasional rush to judgment. It reminds us that extraordinary claims demand not just an open mind, but a critical eye. For every genuine enigma like the Antikythera Mechanism, there are dozens of misunderstood objects waiting for their context to be restored. So what other artifacts have been mistakenly cast as ancient technology? The list is long, from grooves in ancient stones said to be evidence of power tools to marks interpreted as prehistoric dinosaur carvings. Each one, when investigated, typically reveals a more ordinary story, a tool mark from known methods, a natural geological formation, or a later addition to an ancient site. Yet the very act of questioning, of looking at the familiar and asking if we have missed something, is the engine of discovery. It is this same restless curiosity that pushes archaeologists to re-examine old finds with new technologies, always aware that the next crack of a geode could reveal not a spark plug, but a truth even more surprising. Ancient Sanskrit epics describe aerial chariots soaring through the skies of a legendary past. These Vimanas, detailed in texts like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, were said to be magnificent vehicles, sometimes powered by mercury or heated engines, capable of immense speeds and armed with devastating weapons. They were the divine transports of gods and heroes, used in celestial battles that reshaped the world. To some, these are not mere myths, but faded accounts of real, sophisticated aircraft from a forgotten age. The descriptions can be startlingly specific, mentioning precise dimensions, the use of metals like lead and copper, and even details about pilots wearing protective suits. It is a compelling narrative, suggesting a lost chapter in human history where aerospace technology was not just a dream but a reality. Yet, to understand these stories, we must step into the worldview that created them. These texts are not technical manuals, they are grand literary works composed to explore philosophical truths, cosmic principles, and the nature of divine power. The Vimana is a powerful symbol of transcendence, a vehicle for the soul's journey as much as for physical travel. In a culture that saw the cosmos as interconnected layers of reality, a flying palace was the perfect metaphor for a king's authority or a god's ability to move between worlds. The weapons they describe, often compared to modern missiles, serve a narrative purpose, representing the cataclysmic power of Dharma and Adharma in conflict. When we look at the actual archaeological record of ancient India, we find no titanium alloys, no landing strips, no physical evidence of these machines. What we do find is evidence of profound intellectual achievement in mathematics, astronomy, and metallurgy. So, did the authors of these epics witness advanced technology, or were they using the most advanced concepts available to them, metalwork and mechanics, to imagine the unimaginable? The line is beautifully blurred. These stories remind us that human imagination has always been our greatest engine of innovation. By envisioning gods in flying chariots, ancient thinkers were projecting their own aspirations onto the cosmos, setting a symbolic goal that, millennia later, we would achieve through science and engineering. Our modern aircraft are, in a very real sense, the physical manifestation of those ancient dreams. This pushes us to a deeper question. How do we distinguish between a myth that encodes lost technology and a myth that simply inspires it? The answer may be that it does not matter. The true power of the Vimana is not in its potential existence as a machine, but in its enduring presence as an idea, a testament to humanity's timeless desire to reach for the heavens. These silent stone giants stand with their backs to the sea, gazing inland across the grassy slopes of one of the most isolated islands on Earth. The Moai of Easter Island are a breathtaking spectacle of human ambition. Each of these colossal heads and torsos, some weighing as much as 80 tons, was carved from compressed volcanic ash at a single quarry, and then transported for kilometers across rugged terrain to massive stone platforms called ahu. How did the Rapa Nui people achieve this without wheels, without draft animals, and without the vast metal tools we would consider essential? The answer is a story of profound ingenuity that we are only just beginning to understand through experimental archaeology. One long-held theory suggested the statues were laid flat and dragged on a path of lubricated logs. Recent experiments, however, have revealed a far more dynamic and plausible method, that the Moai were designed to walk. By using a system of ropes, teams could have rocked the statues from side to side, pivoting them forward in a shuffling, upright gait that made the immense weight manageable. This walking method aligns with local oral traditions that literally say the statues walk to their platforms. It also explains the specific design of the Moai, with their forward-leaning posture and rounded bases perfectly suited for this rocking motion. The carving process itself was a monumental undertaking. Using hand-held basalt picks, master carvers would first outline the statue's form in the rock face of the Rono Raraku quarry. Then teams would painstakingly chip away the surrounding stone, working the figure from the top down until only a narrow spine connected it to the bedrock. Once freed, the Moai was lowered down the quarry slope, a feat requiring incredible coordination and strength. The deep, eroded paths leading from the quarry still bear witness to the countless journeys these giants made. This was not a random act of devotion, but a highly organized societal effort. The statues represented deified ancestors, their powerful presence believed to watch over and protect the living communities. Erecting a larger, more impressive Moai was a way for a clan to demonstrate its status and connection to the divine. This very drive for prestige, however, may have sown the seeds of the island's ecological crisis. The intensive logging to create rollers and ropes for transport, combined with the clearing of land for agriculture, is thought to have led to severe deforestation. The loss of trees caused soil erosion, crippled the ability to build new fishing canoes, and ultimately contributed to a societal collapse. The story of the Moai is a powerful paradox, a testament to human brilliance in overcoming physical challenges, yet also a cautionary tale about the consequences of resource depletion. It forces us to ask what other monumental achievements from isolated cultures were born from a delicate balance between innovation and their environment, a balance that could be tragically broken. This same drive to connect Earth with the heavens is carved into the very foundations of the Great Pyramid. Its four sides align to the cardinal directions with a precision that borders on the impossible, a deviation of less than 1/15 of a single degree. Built over 4,500 years ago without magnetic compasses or satellite guidance, this accuracy implies a profound and sophisticated understanding of the night sky. The most compelling theory points to a simple, elegant method involving the circumpolar stars. These stars, which never dip below the horizon, appear to rotate around the celestial pole. An ancient astronomer could have used a vertical rod or a plumb line to track the arc of a single star, like Kochab or Mizar, as it rose and set. By marking the points on the horizon where the star reached its lowest and highest positions, then bisecting that angle, they could have found a true north-south line with astonishing fidelity. This was not a one-night endeavor. It required patient observation over many seasons, a cumulative project of celestial cartography translated into stone. The tool they may have used was the Merkit, a forked sighting stick used in conjunction with a plumb line. Acting as a primitive transit instrument, a priest astronomer could have used the Merkit to sight on a specific star, creating a perfect meridian line in the desert sand. This alignment was far more than a technical necessity for a stable foundation. For the Egyptians, the cosmos was a divine order, and the pyramid was a machine for resurrection, a ramp for the pharaoh's soul to ascend and join the eternal, undying stars. Its perfect orientation physically anchored the structure to the cosmic principles of balance, order, and eternity. The north face, pointing to the imperishable circumpolar stars, was a direct conduit to the afterlife. This fusion of practical engineering and deep spiritual belief raises a humbling question. How many other ancient structures, whose alignments we have overlooked as crude or coincidental, hold similar coded messages to the stars, waiting for us to learn how to read their silent stone language? A Roman drinking cup glows emerald green in reflected light, but hold it up to a lamp and it transforms into a translucent, fiery red. This is the Lycurgus Cup, a 4th century masterpiece that does more than just hold wine. It captures light itself, a magical effect achieved through a secret its creators never truly understood: nanotechnology. Roman artisans, by meticulously grinding gold and silver into a powder so fine it was a cloud of microscopic particles, were unknowingly engineering at the molecular level. They would have mixed this precious dust into the molten glass, a process of trial and observation that produced a material we now call dichroic glass. The tiny metal fragments, each smaller than a grain of pollen, interact with light in a remarkable way. When light shines on the cup from the front, the nanoparticles scatter the blue and green wavelengths, making the glass appear a rich jade. But when a light source is placed inside, the particles allow the red wavelengths to pass straight through, creating that stunning crimson glow. This was not a parlor trick. It was a centerpiece for imperial feasts, a cup designed to awe and intimidate. Imagine a powerful senator drinking from it during a banquet. As he raised it to his lips, the wine within would seem to ignite, bathed in a red internal light, a clear symbol of his own vibrant power. In a different context, it might have served a ritual purpose, its color-shifting nature representing a bridge between the mortal world and the divine. The artisans achieved this centuries before the microscope, working purely through empirical mastery. They knew that adding a certain mix of metals produced a dazzling effect, even if the physics of plasmon resonance were a mystery they could never articulate. We only unraveled the science behind their craft in the 1950s, a sobering reminder that our modern technological age is not the first to manipulate matter at an invisible scale. This single chalice forces a profound question onto the shelves of every museum in the world. How many other ancient objects, dismissed as simple art or ritual, hold within them a hidden, scientific principle that we have yet to recognize, waiting only for the right light to reveal their true nature? High in the Andes, the empire's administrators never put pen to paper, yet they tracked millions of subjects, vast storehouses of grain, and the movements of armies across thousands of miles. Their tool was not a ledger but a cascade of strings, a device of astonishing complexity known as the quipu. Each quipu was a tactile library, a primary chord from which dozens, sometimes hundreds, of pendant chords hung. These strings were made from cotton or the wool of llamas and alpacas, dyed in a vibrant spectrum of colors. The information was stored not in ink but in a language of knots. The type of knot, its specific position along the string, and the color of the cord itself all combined to create a rich, multilayered code. A simple overhand knot represented the number 1. A long knot could signify 2 through 9 depending on the number of turns, and a figure 8 knot marked the decimal place, separating tens, hundreds, and thousands. A trained interpreter, a quipukamayok, could run their fingers along these strings and recite census data, tax obligations, or the contents of an imperial warehouse with flawless accuracy. This was the administrative backbone of the largest empire in the pre-Columbian Americas, a system so effective it managed a territory spanning modern-day Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, and parts of Chile and Argentina. For a long time, scholars believed quipus were solely numerical, sophisticated accounting tools for a bureaucracy that had no need for coinage. But recent discoveries have begun to challenge that limited view. A small number of quipus found in specific regional contexts do not follow the predictable numerical patterns. Their knot sequences are more complex, their color combinations more narrative. Researchers like Sabine Heil and now propose that these may have been narrative quipus capable of recording stories, genealogies, and historical events. In a society without a written alphabet, these knotted chords may have been the medium for preserving law, poetry, and the very history of the Inca people. The colors themselves held meaning: a blue string from the coast, a brown from the highlands, a specific shade signifying a particular ethnic group or a sacred concept. Deciphering this lost language is one of archaeology's greatest puzzles. Unlike the Rosetta Stone, there is no bilingual text to provide a key. Scholars are using advanced statistical analysis to compare the structures of hundreds of surviving quipus, looking for repeated patterns that might unlock their grammatical rules. Each quipu is a unique artifact, and the death of the last quipukamayok centuries ago took with them the living knowledge of how to read these intricate records. The quipu forces us to expand our definition of writing and data storage. We are a culture dominated by the visual, by ink on a page or pixels on a screen. The Inca built a civilization on a technology of touch, a three-dimensional, tactile system for organizing information that was as portable as it was durable. It represents a fundamentally different path that human ingenuity can take, a reminder that our way is not the only way. This raises a profound question about the nature of communication itself and how other ancient societies might have used equally ephemeral, yet no less sophisticated, methods to speak across the centuries. While the Inca encoded information in knotted strings, another civilization mastered the flow of life itself by carving rivers beneath the desert. The Persian Qanat is a masterpiece of subterranean engineering, a gently sloping tunnel that channels water from a mountain aquifer down to the arid plains below. For over 3,000 years, these hidden canals have turned some of the world's driest regions into flourishing centers of agriculture and human settlement. The construction of a single Qanat was a monumental, community-wide effort. It began with skilled surveyors locating a water source at the foot of a mountain. Then, teams of workers known as mukanis would dig a mother well, sometimes plunging hundreds of feet deep to reach the water table. From this starting point, they would begin carving the main tunnel backward toward their destination, a city or farmland many miles away. The true genius of the system lies in its series of vertical access shafts, Dug at regular intervals, these shafts served two critical purposes. They provided ventilation and a way to remove excavated soil during construction, and once the canat was operational, they allowed for continuous maintenance and cleaning of the tunnel. The gentle, consistent slope of the main channel was its most vital feature, allowing gravity to do all the work of moving the water without any need for pumps. This slow, underground journey had incredible benefits. By traveling through the cool earth, the water was protected from the blistering sun, reducing evaporation to almost nothing. The tunnel itself acted as a natural filter, straining out impurities and delivering clean, fresh water to the surface. This was not a haphazard project. It required an advanced understanding of geology, hydrology, and geometry to ensure the slope was perfect. Too steep and the water would erode the tunnel walls, too shallow and the flow would stagnate. The social organization behind the canats was just as sophisticated as the engineering. Maintaining these extensive networks demanded a clear and fair system of water rights and communal labor. The Mukanis formed a respected guild, passing their specialized knowledge from father to son. Water distribution was often managed with precise time shares, measured by water clocks, ensuring every farmer received their allotted portion. This technology became the lifeblood of empires. The Achaemenid Persians, under rulers like Darius the Great, actively promoted the construction of canats across their vast territory, understanding that water security was the foundation of economic stability and imperial control. The system was so effective that it spread along trade routes, influencing water management from North Africa to Western China. Even the Spanish encountered similar systems, which they called acequias, during their occupation of the Iberian Peninsula. In a world now facing severe water scarcity, the canat offers a powerful lesson in sustainable resource management. It is a closed system that respects the natural water table, providing a steady supply without depleting the source. It requires no external energy, only an initial investment of labor and ongoing communal care. This ancient answer to a timeless challenge forces us to look at our own solutions, our energy-intensive pumps and vulnerable above-ground aqueducts, and wonder what other wisdom we have forgotten in our rush toward technological complexity. How many other sustainable lifelines are buried in the dust, waiting to quench a thirsty future? Deep in the river deltas of Costa Rica, the jungle hides a collection of perfect forms. Workers clearing land for a banana plantation in the 1930s first uncovered them, their smooth, curved surfaces emerging from the mud like giant stone marbles. These are the stone spheres of the Decoding, and their creation was a monumental act of patience and skill. Carved from a single, massive block of hard gabbro or limestone, the largest of these spheres stand over 2 meters tall and weigh more than 16 tons. The true marvel lies in their geometry. They are not merely round, but exhibit a near-perfect sphericity that would be challenging to achieve even with modern machine tools. How did a pre-Columbian culture without metal tools or the wheel accomplish such a feat? The process likely began by roughly shaping a boulder with other, harder stones used as hammers. Then, through a painstaking cycle of heating the stone with fire and rapidly cooling it with water, the creators could have induced controlled fractures, flaking away large portions to approach the desired shape. The final, breathtaking smoothness was achieved through endless hours of grinding and polishing with sand and water, a labor of love that transformed raw rock into a symbol of cosmic perfection. These spheres were not hidden away. They were placed with clear intention, often in prominent public spaces like village plazas, or arranged in lines and geometric patterns along pathways. Some groupings appear to align with astronomical events, suggesting they might have functioned as a giant calendar, marking solstices or equinoxes for an agricultural society. Other theories propose they were powerful status symbols, their size and number reflecting the wealth and influence of a specific clan or chieftain. In a world without written records from the Decoding themselves, the spheres become a silent language. Their perfect shape could represent the sun, the moon, or the very concept of cosmic unity, a physical anchor for a world where harmony and balance were paramount. The immense effort required to create and position them speaks to a collective purpose that unified the community. This was not frivolous art, it was an investment in identity and belief, carved in stone for the ages. Yet the full meaning of their specific arrangements has been lost, scrambled by centuries of the spheres being moved, rolled, and even looted. We are left with the objects, but the context has faded. Why invest generations of labor into objects with no apparent practical use? The answer may be that their purpose was the labor itself, the act of creation, the communal effort to shape the unyielding earth into a symbol of perfection, may have been the entire point, a ritual that bound the people to their land and to each other. These silent orbs challenge our modern, utilitarian mindset, reminding us that the greatest innovations are not always about what a thing does, but about what it means. While grand monuments were reshaping landscapes, another revolution was taking place on the tables of merchants and scholars. A simple frame strung with beads, the abacus, provided the computational power to build empires, manage vast treasuries, and chart the heavens. Its design was deceptively elegant, a physical manifestation of the place value system that is the bedrock of all modern mathematics. Each row of beads represented a different order of magnitude, ones, tens, hundreds, allowing a skilled user to add, subtract, multiply, and divide with a speed that rivaled mental calculation. This was not a single invention, but a tool that evolved independently across the world. In ancient Mesopotamia, around 2,400 years before the Common Era, clay tablets depict early counting boards with lines drawn in the sand. The Romans refined this into the calculi, using small stones moved along grooves on a board. But it was the Chinese suanpan that perfected the form, with its classic 2 beads in the upper deck and 5 in the lower, allowing for calculations in the base 16 system also used for weighing precious commodities. Think of a merchant in a bustling Roman port, using his calculi to finalize a shipment of grain from Alexandria, or an imperial scribe in the Han Dynasty, using his suanpan to calculate the tax revenue from a distant province. The abacus did not just solve math problems, it solved real-world problems of logistics, trade, and governance. It enabled the precise engineering behind aqueducts and the complex astronomy needed for calendars. Its enduring legacy is a testament to its raw efficiency. Even today, in an age of supercomputers, the abacus is still used in many parts of Asia for its speed and as a teaching tool to build a fundamental, tactile understanding of numbers. How did this ancient device influence the thinkers who would later conceive of mechanical calculators and, eventually, the computer? The answer lies in the very logic it embodied, a binary dance of beads that proved the physical world could be made to compute. This foundational logic would need a language, a system of writing numbers that could travel as lightly as a thought. A bronze figure of a woman glided across a temple floor, her feet hidden beneath flowing robes as she poured wine from a pitcher into a guest's cup. This mechanical servant, described in the texts of ancient Greece, was not a myth but a tangible creation of master engineers like Hero of Alexandria. In workshops filled with the smell of heated metal and olive oil, these inventors built automata, self-moving devices powered by steam, water, or hidden counterweights. Their creations were marvels of their age, designed to inspire wonder and reverence. One of Hero's most famous inventions was the Electroplating, a sealed sphere mounted on a boiler. When the water inside was heated, steam would shoot from two opposing tubes, causing the entire sphere to spin rapidly on its axis. This was not merely a toy, it was the world's first recorded steam engine, a working demonstration of principles that would not be fully harnessed for industry for another 1700 years. The potential was there, humming in that spinning bronze ball, yet it was used not to power machinery but to demonstrate a philosophical point about the power of air and vapor. The automata served a profound purpose in their cultural context. In temples, they could be used to create divine spectacles, doors that appeared to open on their own as a fire was lit on the altar, or statues that wept and moved, reinforcing the power of the gods to the faithful. In the courts of wealthy patrons, they were the ultimate entertainment, mechanical theaters that performed entire scenes from mythology with automated puppets, their movements timed by the slow fall of weights or the precise flow of grain. These were not just feats of engineering, they were a fusion of science and art, pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible. What drove these early engineers to invest such incredible effort into what we might dismiss as elaborate toys? The answer lies in a culture that celebrated intellect, spectacle, and the human desire to mimic the creative forces of nature itself. Their work was a form of high philosophy made physical, a testament to the idea that the universe operated on mechanical principles that could be understood and replicated. This legacy of blending artistic wonder with mechanical precision would echo through the centuries, inspiring the intricate clocks of the medieval period and eventually laying the conceptual groundwork for the field of robotics. It forces us to reconsider a simple yet profound question. Is the spark of true innovation found in pure utility, or in the beautiful, seemingly impractical desire to make the impossible come to life? A queen's private chamber in the palace of Knossos held a secret far more advanced than its golden adornments. Beneath the floor, a network of terracotta pipes channeled fresh water and whisked away waste, a luxury that would not become common again for almost 4,000 years. The Minoan civilization of ancient Crete, thriving over 4,000 years ago, engineered a public health infrastructure that rivaled the complexity of many modern cities. At the heart of their palaces and towns lay a sophisticated system of sanitation that managed water flow with an almost intuitive understanding of physics and urban planning. They constructed closed sewers from stone and clay, built aqueducts to bring fresh water from mountain springs, and designed intricate drainage channels that snaked through entire complexes, all relying on the silent, relentless pull of gravity. The Minoans did not just build for grandeur, they built for cleanliness, creating an environment that likely contributed to their health and the flourishing of their dense urban centers. Their techniques reveal a startling level of foresight. The pipes themselves were masterpieces of practical design, carefully tapered so that the wider end of one segment fit snugly into the narrower end of the next. This simple but brilliant innovation prevented debris from catching on the joints, reducing blockages and ensuring a smooth, consistent flow. The entire system was a carefully orchestrated cascade, from the aqueducts that fed large stone cisterns, to the clay conduits that supplied fountains and bathrooms, and finally to the underground drains that carried wastewater far from living spaces. How did they achieve such a feat without any knowledge of bacteria or germ theory? Their genius was hydraulic, not biological. They understood the visible principles of contamination, that stagnant water bred illness and that waste needed to be separated from clean water. This empirical knowledge, gained through observation, allowed them to engineer a solution that addressed the symptom, even if the microscopic cause was a mystery to them. This remarkable technology was not destined to become a global standard. With the sudden and still debated collapse of Minoan civilization around 1400 years before the Common Era, their plumbing secrets were largely forgotten. The intricate networks fell into disuse and were buried under rubble, their purpose lost to subsequent Greek cultures who would not develop comparable systems for centuries. The world had to wait until the 19th century for public sanitation to reach a similar level of sophistication, a staggering gap in progress. The silent, buried pipes of Knossos stand as a powerful monument to a society that prioritized communal well-being. They force us to reconsider the very markers of an advanced civilization, suggesting that a reliable flush toilet might be a greater achievement than a golden throne. This profound understanding of public works makes you wonder what other foundational comforts of modern life were first conceived in the ancient world, only to vanish for ages, waiting to be invented all over again. Deep in the humid jungles of the Mexican Gulf Coast, stone giants stare out from a lost world. The Olmec colossal heads are monuments of pure presence, each one a single basalt boulder carved into a stern, helmeted visage weighing up to 50 tons. They are portraits in stone created over 3,000 years ago by the first major civilization in Mesoamerica, and their very existence is a riddle of logistics and artistry. The raw material itself was a challenge of epic proportions. The basalt came from the Tuxtla Mountains, quarried from the volcanic rock using even harder stone hammers and chisels. Workers would have heated the rock face with fire, then doused it with water to create thermal fractures, prying loose, manageable boulders. But this was only the beginning of the journey. The quarries lay dozens of miles from the Olmec heartland at sites like San Lorenzo and La Venta, a landscape crisscrossed by rivers, swamps, and dense forest. Without the wheel, without draft animals, the movement of these multi-ton blocks defies easy explanation. The most plausible theory involves a coordinated symphony of human labor. They likely constructed wooden sledges, placing the colossal head atop a sturdy platform that could be pulled. Beneath this sledge, they would have laid a track of lubricated logs as rollers, constantly moving the rear logs to the front in a slow, relentless procession. For river crossings, they may have built massive rafts, using the water's buoyancy to their advantage. This was not a task for a small village, but for a highly organized society capable of mobilizing and feeding hundreds, perhaps thousands, of people for a single, unifying purpose. The carving was an act of profound skill, using simple tools of jadate, basalt, and water mixed with abrasive sand. Master sculptors transformed a featureless rock into a portrait of startling individuality. Each head is unique, with distinct facial features, expressions, and elaborate headdresses that likely signified rank and identity. The attention to detail is breathtaking, from the subtle lines around the mouths to the intricate patterns carved into the helmets. They are believed to represent powerful rulers, deified ancestors, or legendary ballplayers. Their stoic gaze is meant to project authority and permanence for generations. The sheer scale of the effort from quarry to final placement speaks to a society with a powerful centralized authority, one capable of commanding vast resources for a symbolic, rather than purely practical, goal. Why commit such immense effort to carving a face in stone? The answer lies in the power of legacy. These heads were not hidden away. They were displayed prominently in ceremonial centers, constant reminders of the ruler's power and the community's collective strength. They were a physical manifestation of social cohesion, a project that bound the people together under a common identity and purpose. The fact that many of these heads were later deliberately damaged and buried suggests that this symbolism was potent enough to be targeted by rivals or successors, a deliberate attempt to erase a leader's memory. The Olmec heads force us to consider a fundamental driver of ancient innovation, the ambition of leadership. It was the desire of a powerful few to immortalize their reign that spurred the many to achieve the seemingly impossible, pushing the boundaries of their technology and organization to create something that would truly last. A medical text from 600 years before the Common Era describes the precise steps for removing a cataract. The Sushruta Samhita, a comprehensive work attributed to the physician Sushruta, details a procedure where a skilled practitioner used a slender, polished Jabamukhi saloka, a type of needle, to loosen the clouded lens and push it out of the field of vision. This was not a rare, experimental operation. The text catalogues over 300 different surgical procedures and classifies 120 specialized instruments, many of which bear a striking resemblance to the forceps, scalpels, and probes found in a modern operating theater. These ancient Indian surgeons set broken bones, extracted bladder stones, and even performed intricate plastic surgery, most famously the reconstruction of a nose. Rhinoplasty was a common necessity in an era where amputation of the nose was a standard punishment. Sushruta's method involved a technique still used today. He described cutting a flap of skin from the patient's cheek, carefully keeping it attached to its blood supply, then twisting and grafting it onto the nasal stump. The result was a functional and cosmetic reconstruction that restored both dignity and breath. The training for such delicate work was as systematic as the procedures themselves. Students learned their craft not just from texts, but through direct apprenticeship, practicing incisions on vegetables, the veins of leaves, and even on leather bags filled with water to simulate the feel of human tissue. This emphasis on hands-on experience was matched by a profound understanding of anatomy, gained from the meticulous dissection of cadavers, a practice that would not become standard in the West for over 2 millennia. They understood the critical importance of cleanliness, advocating for the sterilization of instruments with heat and the use of antiseptic substances, long before the germ theory of disease was ever conceived. How did patients endure such complex operations without modern anesthesia? The answer lies in a sophisticated pharmacopoeia of natural anesthetics. Surgeons used wines and herbs like cannabis and datura to induce sedation and numb the senses, allowing them to work with a level of precision that seems almost impossible to fathom. This was not mere trial and error. It was a robust empirical science, a system of medical knowledge that recognized the connection between diet, lifestyle, and surgical outcomes. The existence of such advanced surgical practice 26 centuries ago completely upends our linear narrative of medical progress. It forces us to acknowledge that the drive to heal, to mend the human body with skill and compassion, and to push the boundaries of what is medically possible, is a fundamental and ancient human endeavor. What other sophisticated medical knowledge, now lost, allowed other civilizations to treat ailments we still struggle with today? The heart of Carthage's naval power was a perfectly engineered circle of water. This artificial harbor was a fortress for ships, a massive inner basin ringed by docks designed to shelter over 200 warships at a time. At its center stood a separate, circular island housing the admiral's headquarters, a command post that offered a panoramic view of every vessel. The entire complex was shielded by towering outer walls, presenting an impenetrable face to any potential invader. But the true genius of this harbor was not just in its scale, but in its hidden mechanics. Ancient sources describe a system of sluice gates, cleverly designed channels that could be opened or closed to regulate the water level within the harbor, ensuring that ships remained safely afloat regardless of the tide. The entrance from the sea was narrow and easily defended, and some accounts suggest it could even be concealed, allowing the Carthaginian fleet to appear or vanish as if by magic. This was not a simple dock, it was a machine for naval warfare. The layout was a masterstroke of logistical planning. Each ship had its own dedicated slip, allowing for rapid, simultaneous deployment. Crews could rest and resupply without ever leaving the protective embrace of the harbor walls, while commanders on the central island coordinated movements with flawless efficiency. This infrastructure gave Carthage a staggering strategic advantage, enabling it to project power across the Mediterranean and protect its lucrative trade routes for centuries. How did they build such a marvel? Archaeological evidence points to the use of hydraulic concrete, a material that sets underwater, much like the Roman concrete we explored earlier. They employed precise surveying to achieve the harbor's perfect geometry, aligning structures with an accuracy that speaks to a deep understanding of engineering. The entire project was a monumental investment in national security, a physical declaration that the sea was their domain. The fate of this harbor, ultimately destroyed by Rome, reminds us that even the most brilliant technology is vulnerable to the tides of war. Yet its legacy forces a question: how many other ancient ports, now silted over or built upon, contained similar innovations in maritime engineering, their secrets waiting beneath the modern coastline? Buried in the earth for 36 centuries, a bronze disc no larger than a dinner plate silently mapped the heavens. Discovered by treasure hunters in Germany, the Nebra Sky Disc is not just an artifact, it is a revolution in our understanding of the Bronze Age mind. Its surface is a cosmic canvas inlaid with gold symbols that capture the sun, a crescent moon, and a glittering cluster of stars thought to be the Pleiades. Two golden arcs frame the horizon, and a third, later addition, a sunboat, sails along the bottom, suggesting a vessel carrying the celestial bodies through the underworld at night. This was far more than decoration. It was a sophisticated astronomical instrument, a portable observatory that could predict the turning of the seasons with startling accuracy. When the position of the sun and the Pleiades aligned between the horizon arcs, it signaled a critical moment, likely the need to synchronize the lunar and solar calendars by adding an intercalary month. For an agricultural society, this knowledge was survival. It told them precisely when to plant and when to harvest, weaving the cycles of the cosmos directly into the rhythm of daily life. The craftsmanship itself was a marvel of its time. Artisans used a complex process of smelting copper with tin to create the bronze alloy, then hammered it into its perfect circular form. The gold appliques were not merely glued on, they were meticulously attached using a technique that involved raising tiny lips of bronze from the disc's surface to hold the delicate sheets in place. This was the work of master metalsmiths who served a priestly elite, individuals who held the power to read the sky and guide their people. The disc's very existence suggests a shared cosmological knowledge stretching across Europe, as the same gold used in its stars was traced to a mine in Cornwall, England, evidence of far-flung trade routes for both materials and ideas. Here, science and spirituality were inseparable. The disc did not just calculate time, it told a story of creation, of God sailing across the sky, and of humanity's sacred place within that grand design. It represents one of our earliest attempts to impose order on the universe, to capture the eternal dance of the stars in a permanent, physical form. How many other portable guides to the cosmos, carved from wood or woven from fiber, have simply returned to the Earth, leaving no trace of the sophisticated sky watchers who held them? Their vibrant red and blue woolen garments seem almost new, woven with intricate patterns that defy the dry, desolate sands of the Tarim Basin. These are the Tarim Mummies, individuals who lived and died nearly 4,000 years ago, yet their faces, their hair, even the tattoos on their skin remain startlingly clear. The extreme aridity and salty soil of the basin acted as a perfect preservative, naturally mummifying these people and locking their story in a state of suspended animation. They were not Egyptians practicing elaborate embalming, but ordinary people preserved by a perfect storm of environmental conditions. With them, they carried a world of artifacts that tell a story far grander than any single civilization. They wore finely crafted felted cloaks and twill trousers, textiles that demonstrate an advanced understanding of weaving and a lifestyle suited to both the harsh cold and the mobile demands of the steppe. Their tools included sophisticated bridles and metal implements, pointing to a society of skilled herders and artisans. The most captivating detail, however, is their own appearance. Many have striking European features with red or blonde hair and tall frames, yet they were buried thousands of miles deep in what is now Western China. This single fact shatters the long-held idea of ancient cultures developing in isolation. These individuals were not lost, they were at home in a crossroads of continents. Their very presence, with their distinct woolen clothing and wheeled carts, suggests a web of migration and trade that stretched across Eurasia millennia before the official Silk Road was named. The goods buried with them are a catalogue of this exchange. The dyes for their vibrant clothes, like madder red and indigo blue, could have come from thousands of miles away. Their bronze knives and ornaments reflect metallurgical traditions that may have originated in the Caucasus or the Altai Mountains. This was not a one-way street. The technologies and styles these people carried with them likely seeded innovations that would later flourish in China and Central Asia, from advanced chariot designs to new textile techniques. Their discovery forces historians to redraw the map of the ancient world, replacing isolated pockets of culture with a dynamic, interconnected landscape where ideas flowed as freely as goods. Unraveling this story required more than just digging. It took chemists to analyze the dyes, geneticists to trace their ancestry, and climatologists to understand the environment that saved them for us. This interdisciplinary approach is the key that unlocked a forgotten chapter of global connection. It makes you wonder how many other silent, preserved witnesses are still out there in the world's deserts and ice, waiting to tell us that our ancient ancestors were far more worldly and far more connected than we ever believed. A Hittite king once wrote a treaty warning his rivals that the secret of iron was his alone to possess. In the highlands of Anatolia, around 1,500 years before the Common Era, this was not an empty boast. The Hittites had unlocked a power that would redefine an age, transforming common rock into the most sought-after metal in the ancient world. Their workshops were not simple forges, but sophisticated bloomery furnaces, clay towers where artisans would layer iron ore with copious amounts of charcoal. For hours, they would pump air into the base using foot bellows, driving the temperature high enough to separate the molten metal from the rocky slag. What emerged was not a pure liquid, but a spongy mass of iron mixed with impurities, a bloom. This glowing, incandescent lump was then pulled from the furnace and hammered relentlessly on a stone anvil. With each strike, the slag was squeezed out and the iron was consolidated into a dense, workable bar of wrought iron. This was a brutal, physically demanding alchemy, a dance of fire, air, and human force. The result was a technological leap that gave the Hittites an unassailable edge. Their smiths could now forge weapons that were stronger, sharper, and more durable than their bronze counterparts. While a bronze sword could bend in the heat of battle, a well-worked iron blade would hold its edge, a decisive advantage that secured Hittite dominance on the battlefield. This was not just a military secret, it was the foundation of their economy, a state-controlled monopoly that fueled their empire. The knowledge was so valuable that metalworkers were often bound to the palace or temple, their skills passed down within families under the watchful eye of the king. How did they first stumble upon this process? It was likely a gradual discovery, born from centuries of experimenting with different ores and furnace designs, a slow accumulation of empirical knowledge that eventually crystallized into a repeatable industrial-scale technique. The Hittite mastery of iron did not just create better swords, it catalyzed the collapse of the entire Bronze Age system. Their control over the trade in tin, the essential ingredient for bronze, was broken as iron ore proved to be far more common and accessible. When the Hittite Empire itself eventually fell, the smiths who knew these secrets scattered across the Mediterranean and Near East, taking their invaluable knowledge with them. This diaspora of expertise spread the technology far and wide, empowering new societies and ushering in the true Iron Age. The story of Hittite iron forces us to see technological progress not as an inevitable march, but as a fragile chain of discovery, secrecy, and diffusion, controlled for a time by a single civilization that understood how to turn stone into power. A human skull from ancient Peru holds a hole the size of a coin, its edges smoothed by the unmistakable signature of new bone growth. This was not a violent death, but a deliberate act of healing. Across the highlands of pre-Columbian Peru, from as early as 2,000 years before the Common Era, surgeons were performing trepanation, a breathtakingly risky form of early brain surgery. Using razor-sharp obsidian blades and ceremonial knives called tumis, they would carefully scrape, cut, or drill a section of the skull away, exposing the delicate membrane protecting the brain. The motivation was likely to relieve pressure from a severe head injury, to treat persistent headaches, or perhaps to release what they believed were evil spirits causing mental illness. The success rates were astonishing. Analysis of hundreds of these skulls reveals that well over half show clear evidence of long-term healing, meaning the patient survived for years after the procedure. Imagine the skill required to navigate the human cranium with only stone tools, avoiding major blood vessels and the brain itself, all while managing pain and preventing infection. They likely used a powerful pharmacopoeia of natural anesthetics and antiseptics, perhaps coca leaves for numbing or fermented beverages to induce a stupor, and certain plants to clean the wound. This was not blind superstition, but a sophisticated, empirical practice born of necessity and observation. They understood the connection between a blow to the head and subsequent swelling, and they developed a technological solution to address it. The cultural belief was likely a fusion of the physical and the spiritual, where releasing pressure was synonymous with releasing a malevolent force. Each healed skull is a silent testament to a surgeon's steady hand, a patient's resilience, and a community's desperate hope. This profound drive to heal, to push the boundaries of the possible with the tools available, forces a humbling question. What other complex surgical knowledge was developed, applied, and then lost by ancient cultures, their techniques forgotten but their success written in the enduring strength of the human body itself? A gentle, unceasing river flowed through the heart of the Roman Empire, not on the surface but elevated on towering arches of stone. These aqueducts were the circulatory system of an urban civilization, delivering life itself, fresh water, across impossible distances using nothing but the silent, relentless pull of gravity. The true genius of these structures lay in a gradient so slight it seems imperceptible, a drop of only 1 foot for every 10,000 feet of channel. Achieving this over dozens of miles required a breathtaking feat of surveying. Roman engineers used an instrument called a chorobates, a long, water-leveled trough, to trace a perfectly consistent downhill path across hills, through tunnels, and over valleys. If a deep gorge blocked their path, they did not alter the route. They simply built a bridge of arches to carry the water channel at its precise, predetermined height, a testament to their unwavering commitment to the mathematical line they had drawn across the landscape. Inside these covered channels, the water was protected from evaporation and contamination. At regular intervals, sedimentation tanks allowed grit and impurities to settle out before the flow continued its journey. In more complex terrain, they employed inverted siphons where the water would plunge down a pipe, cross a valley under its own pressure, and then rise up a parallel pipe on the other side, all because the outlet was deliberately placed just lower than the inlet. This was not just moving water, it was mastering it. The materials they used were as crucial as the design. They lined the channels with a waterproof cement made from that same miraculous pozzolana ash that gave their concrete such longevity, ensuring that every precious drop reached its destination. The end point of this monumental effort was a public fountain in a bustling city square, or the vast, complex network feeding the famous Roman baths. This infrastructure was not a luxury, it was a declaration. It enabled cities like Rome to support populations of over 1 million people, fostering public health, economic activity, and a shared civic identity. The constant flow of clean water into the city meant a constant flow of waste out of it through equally sophisticated sewer systems, creating a standard of urban living that would vanish for over 1,000 years after the empire's fall. The enduring stone skeletons of these aqueducts, still striding across the European countryside, are more than ruins. They are a permanent lesson in the power of infrastructure to shape human destiny. They challenge our own modern societies, where aging pipes and fragile systems remind us that the greatest innovations are often those that work so flawlessly, we forget they are there until they are gone. A Viking ship rides the gray swell of the North Atlantic, the sky a featureless ceiling of cloud. With no sun to steer by and no magnetic compass, the open ocean should have been an impassable wall. Yet they sailed it, reaching Iceland, Greenland, and even the shores of America centuries before Columbus. Their secret weapon may have been a seemingly ordinary crystal, a piece of transparent calcite known as Iceland spar. This is the legendary sunstone, a device that did not merely look at the sky but saw through it. When you hold this crystal to your eye and look toward a patch of clear sky, even through thick cloud cover, a remarkable thing happens. The light passing through it splits into two beams, creating a double image. By rotating the stone, a skilled navigator could align these images until they matched in brightness. This alignment points directly toward the sun's hidden position, revealing its location with an accuracy that could mean the difference between finding land and vanishing forever into the sea. Modern experiments have proven this is not just a myth from the sagas. Researchers have used replicas of these sunstones to pinpoint the sun's location with an error of less than 1 degree, even when it was well below the horizon. This was not magic, but a practical application of polarized light, a principle of physics that would not be formally understood for another 800 years. The Vikings were using the sky itself as a vast compass. The atmosphere scatters sunlight, creating a pattern of polarization that forms a ring around the sun, invisible to our naked eyes but crystal clear to the right tool. They likely combined this with other ingenious methods, like tracking the migration paths of birds known to fly toward land, or observing the subtle swell patterns that reflected distant coastlines. A sunstone would have been a master navigator's most prized possession, a piece of solid sky held in the palm of the hand. It gave them the confidence to push into the unknown, to trust in a hidden star they could only see through a fragment of rock. This raises a profound question about the nature of discovery. How many other civilizations developed their own unique tools for reading the natural world? tools that left no trace in the archaeological record because they were simply a crystal, a stick, or a practiced eye. The Viking sunstone reminds us that the greatest technology is sometimes not what you build, but what you learn to see. A spoon carved from a single piece of magnetic lodestone once spun silently on a polished bronze plate. This was the Sinan, the south-pointing ladle of ancient China, a device that did not point to a geographic pole, but to the idea of order itself. From the Han Dynasty over 2,000 years ago, this was not a tool for sailors but for mystics. Diviners used it to harmonize the living with the unseen forces of the earth, aligning homes, tombs, and palaces according to the principles of Feng Shui. The goal was to achieve balance with the flow of Kai, and the lodestone, always finding its southern orientation, was the key to reading the world's invisible currents. They called this mysterious, attractive force psi, a property they observed and harnessed long before they could explain the physics of magnetism. How did they first discover this power? It was likely a chance encounter, perhaps a miner or a stone carver noticing that a certain dark, heavy rock consistently aligned itself in a particular direction when left to swing freely. This empirical observation, repeated and refined, became a technology. The original spoon design was deeply symbolic, its bowl representing the dome of the heavens and its handle the Great Bear constellation, which circles the celestial pole. The bronze plate beneath it was often engraved with the 8 trigrams and the 24 directional points of the Chinese cosmos. This was a philosophical instrument, a model of the universe that physically demonstrated the connection between the earthly and the celestial. The transformation from a ritual object to a practical one was slow and profound. By the time of the Song dynasty, the cumbersome ladle had been replaced by a slender, magnetized iron needle. Artisans would stroke a piece of iron with a natural lodestone, transferring the magnetic property, and then carefully suspend the needle from a silk thread or float it on a reed in a bowl of water. This floating compass was a revolution in miniaturization and portability. Now, a ship's captain could carry the world in a bowl, his course no longer solely dependent on the stars visible at night or the sun on a cloudy day. This innovation unlocked the seas. Chinese junks, some of them colossal ships with multiple decks and watertight compartments, could now venture farther and with greater confidence. They established and maintained trade routes throughout the South China Sea and across the Indian Ocean, reaching the coast of Africa. The magnetic needle did not just point south, it pointed toward wealth, cultural exchange, and imperial expansion. The knowledge of this device traveled west along the very trade routes it helped to secure, passing through the Arab world and into Europe by the 12th century. There, it would help spark the age of exploration, enabling navigators like Columbus and Magellan to cross oceans they previously would have feared. The legacy of that first spinning spoon is embedded in every guidance system we use today, from the simple handheld compass to the global positioning satellites that network our planet. It stands as a timeless lesson that the most world-altering technologies often begin not with a complex theory, but with a simple, curious observation of the natural world. The scattered remnants of the ancient world form a silent, scattered library of human ingenuity. From the intricate bronze gears of the Antikythera Mechanism to the light-bending crystals of the Viking sunstone, each artifact we have explored stands as a testament to civilizations whose intellectual reach often surpassed our assumptions. These were not primitive cultures groping in the dark, but sophisticated societies that solved problems with a creativity and precision that can still leave us breathless. Every one of these discoveries does more than just fill a museum case. It actively challenges the linear narrative of history we so often take for granted. It forces us to reconsider what we mean by progress and to question the very foundations of our technological superiority. The Roman concrete that heals its own wounds, the Inca masonry that dances with earthquakes, the Indian surgeries that restored faces and lives, all whisper a humbling truth that profound innovation is not the sole property of the modern age. This journey through forgotten marvels is not merely an academic exercise. It is an urgent inspiration for our own time. As we face global challenges from climate change to resource scarcity, the past offers a vast and largely untapped reservoir of sustainable solutions. The Persian Qanat teaches us how to manage water with gravity and foresight, while the Minoan plumbing reminds us that public health is a cornerstone of civilization. These are not obsolete curiosities, but blueprints for resilience proven over millennia. The true lesson is to look beyond our conventional wisdom, to be open to the idea that the most advanced answer to a modern problem might be waiting patiently in the stones and scripts of a forgotten era. Our shared heritage is not just a record of who we were, but a guidebook for who we can become. We would love to hear which of these ancient innovations resonated most deeply with you. Was it the celestial computer of the Greeks, the self-healing concrete of the Romans, or the surgical mastery of Sushruta? Share your thoughts in the comments and join the conversation. If you enjoyed this journey to the edges of history, subscribe for more explorations into the mysteries that shape our world. Thank you for watching, and may your own curiosity continue to be the key that unlocks the secrets of our past and illuminates the path to our future.